had a red hot go. You really gave it a rip. You tried your best. You fell over and over again. It's just natural. It's just what happens. But you got up, dusted yourself off, and you had another go. You have nothing to fear because it's not about perfection. It's about doing your level best. And as I said, having a red hot go. It's worth having just a little bit of a treatment of the question, well, why should I? Why should I act in a loving way? This system that we have, the system of capitalism, consumerism in particular, doesn't reward it. I quite like all the pleasures that I'm getting for myself, and I don't think there are any consequences to not doing the right thing. And so thank you very much, but I'm going to love myself and serve myself and accumulate things for myself and really not bother about the welfare of other people in general. And I think what you get down to there is that little phrase, consequences, or there are no consequences, or the fact that there's a lack of consequence for not behaving in a loving fashion. Now, I should say that there'll be, hopefully, a lot of people. I mean, I'm hoping there'll be just rafts and rafts of people who will hear this simple gospel and say, yeah, actually, that sounds right. That sounds correct. I'm going to just basically leave all the other stuff alone, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do whatever I can to alleviate human suffering, to be kind, generous, hospitable, to give, and even, hopefully, to give without stopping to count the cost, to just give like an absolute maniac. And sometimes I think you've got to be a maniac to understand the things that I'm putting here. So hopefully there's going to be lots of those people who hear it, it agrees with what's in their heart, and they say, yep, sounds fair enough, let's go that way. Before I jump into it, I have to say one of the things that I would like to loosen people off a little bit is what I come across a lot of the time, which is a strange kind of materialism, a modern kind of materialism that people often comfort themselves is a scientific materialism. And these are people who say there is nothing else in this world. So my rebuttal to people who say, oh, no, I'm just this, and this is a scientific point of view, I'm just this, is to say you do realize that what you're pressing here, this baryonic matter, atomic matter made up of baryons, or subatomic particles, scientists tell us that is 5% of what there is. 5%. The rest of it is missing. And there are these placeholders, dark energy, dark matter, and people say, well, yeah, energy and matter, it's all energy and matter, but they fail to realize that, no, dark energy and dark matter, they're just placeholders. They don't mean that it's energy or matter. Nobody knows what this stuff is or where it is. And as I understand it, this is scientific consensus. When you look at other areas, including, for example, the existence of other dimensions, heavens, hells, all these sorts of things that spirituality has always talked about, science tells us that there are, I think the consensus is 11 different dimensions. But even talking about a consensus, I think is a bit illusory. In any event, it's a very popular idea. There are 11 dimensions, 3 of space, 1 of time, and then 7 others, which are apparently all rolled up really tightly, really, really close to this one, but inaccessible from this one. It's enough to make a person a bit woo-woo. So you say 95% of the stuff in the universe is missing. We don't know what it is. We can't detect it. And there are all these little dimensions rolled up. There's even talk of multiverses, these kinds of things. I don't think it should drag people into what's now called quantum mysticism, where people say, oh, well, astrology is real, and ghosts are real, and these are real. No. All I think it should do is just loosen you off your so-called scientific materialism a little bit, And I'd also challenge people to consider whether their scientific materialism is just, in fact, materialism, as in crass materialism, as in consumerism. When you say that's all there is, this is the ideology of consumerism, because if you have a deeply spiritual view of life and you believe that there may be some kind of an accounting afterlife, that you may be, in the old language, judged, you're not going to be a very effective consumer, because you're going to be thinking more about your conscience than your stomach and the other parts of you that might be satisfied by whatever consumerism can provide to you. So I just want to provide you with this vision that I have. I sometimes say I have been vouchsafed this vision. It has been given to me. I have obtained it, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. It's just one way of thinking about things that maybe, just maybe, will introduce a bit of reflection into people and make them think perhaps they had better have another look at this self thing, and perhaps have a bit more of a think about, the gospel of love one another. So, I'm not going to talk about anything after death. I think that event horizon is a very, very powerful barrier, even to the imagination. And the imagination is a wonderful thing for seeing into the deep structure of things. But I just want to talk about what happens as people approach death. And this is the vision that's been given to me. So it's become almost a cliche for people to say, well, when people die, their life flashes before their eyes. And I'm sure that you would have heard that. I'm hoping that when you heard it, you thought to yourself, well, hang on, how is that possible that an entire life, like years and years and years and years, could just flash before your eyes and you could comprehend it? And I think the answer is that time is elastic. So scientists tell us that time is relative. That's a deep scientific truth. Depends on where you are, what you're next to, how fast you're going, that sort of thing. But we all know from a human point of view, just our basic human experience, that time is elastic. They always say time flies when you're having fun, and then you would have been in classes or lectures or other interminable experiences where time just feels like each moment has become an eternity. So that's my vision of what happens as a person approaches death. Time attenuates until it becomes, in the experience of the person, as good as eternal time. And there, stretched out in front of you, is a complete view of your life. And the important part of it is that there's no one there sort of, chiding you or reminding you or anything like that, but your conscience, your human conscience that you were born with, is there with you and is reviewing, or at least feeling and sensing you review the moral quality of your life. And there really is only one moral determinant. Was your life dedicated to the welfare of other people? Were you kind, hospitable, friendly? Did you increase goodness in the world? Did you increase human happiness? Did you make people feel better around you? Or were you greedy, selfish, grasping, nasty, abusive, aggressive, violent? And the difficulty is when you're reunited with your conscience like that, because most people, to be honest, I find have either repressed their conscience or it's been allowed to just disappear a little bit. They don't feel it's very closely with them. It comes back. And what you do not want to do, you do not want to feel overwhelming shame and horror and self-reproach and self-disgust, because at that point, you will fall into what they call the Slough of Despond. I heard an Italian priest the other day who happens to be an exorcist, who says that he gets all of this direct information from these spiritual entities. He called it the fuoco del remorso, the fires of remorse. I don't think of it so much as being like fire, but certainly it's painful, it's suffering, it consumes the person. And if you slip into the slough of despond, if your horror and your regret and your remorse is so powerful that you just slip into that hole, the pit, Sheol, a prison of a terrible singularity, I once wrote in one of my books, you're done. You are absolutely done. And you do not want to end up in that situation. Again, when I was describing it in the book, this character is continuously more sickened and horrified, and she's packed further and further into that one tiny corner of space and time where there can be no quantification. The Slough of Despond, the prison of a terrible singularity. You do not want to end up in that place, I can swear to you. The difficulty is that I think that there may just be genuinely two kinds of people in the world: the kind-hearted, the generous, the just, the merciful, and those other kinds. And that nothing that I say, I mean, I could have made up the story. I could have made this up from scratch, just completely and utterly made it up to scare the hell out of you. But I honestly don't think that anybody who doesn't have that kind of a heart would even be able to hit. They'd be laughing, sneering. I mean, even if they're watching it, they probably couldn't have gotten through the whole video. And one thing I do not want to do is to terrify decent people, because what is important is not that you were perfect in every way, that you were free of sin, whatever that means, that you never transgressed, that you never hurt a person in your life, that you never said a harsh word, that you were never selfish. No, we are human. We fail all the time. What matters, and this is the most important part of what I have to say here, what matters is whether you had, as we say in this part of the world, in my country, did you have a red hot go? Because if you had a red hot go, you really gave it a rip, you tried your best, you fell over and over again, it's just natural, it's just what happens, but you got up, dusted yourself off, and you had another go, you have nothing to fear. Because it's not about perfection. It's about doing your level best, and as I said, having a red hot go. So look, I think that may be enough. It's weird. Only when I look back on what I've said and think back on what I've said, I realize I think there really are two types of people in the world. The sort of people who will take notice of what I've been saying and really make more of an effort and really try to focus on loving other people. And there's a huge swath of people who just wouldn't even be able to process it or wouldn't even be able to admit it, even if they heard it. They'll laugh at it, they'll deride it, call me names, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. Avoid the Slough of Despond, love one another, and as I should be saying to myself increasingly, probably, but I do have a bit to get across. I have been given instructions to say some of these things. Hopefully it doesn't go on for too long. But love one another, shut the hell up, and be kind to each other.